Wish you good luck in your new role. I know it's a challenging time ahead. Secretary of State, next week we are voting on your deal, and in your opinion, are you confident that you're going to secure enough votes to get it through the House?
Well, I think it's going to be challenging. I think everyone recognises that. It's an issue on which a great deal has already been said. But there is clearly time between now and the vote. And I think
so will it
what
get
has
through?
come, well, as a former whip, one waits for the vote to see. But I'm confident that we can deliver this deal because I think it is in the national interest. We've had a very divisive.
You're confident you can deliver the deal, but
I think, as I say, I think it's
challenging.
challenging. It's challenging because a lot of colleagues have already spoken out on this, and I think part of the challenge is this complex legal wiring between the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. It's complex in terms of the economic analysis. It's complex. In terms, well, one can run through a.
So, assuming it doesn't get through
issues,
next week, Secretary of State, what's your contingency or Plan B?
Well, our focus is on delivering the vote, and that's what we're focused on. And
but surely it's the job of government to look beyond that, because we know.
One hears a lot about this Plan B. I mean, the Prime Minister has been very clear that.
So there is no Plan B. There's no contingency plan.
The focus of government. Ms Jenkins is on delivering this vote. That is what I am focused on. Well, in that event, then obviously government would have to look at the consequences in due course. But the focus of government is on...
the next day, you know, say the vote gets voted down, what's going to happen? I think the public want to know, the committee want to know, the country wants to know.
Well, people often challenge politicians for honest answers. The honest answer is it's unclear, because it's unclear how
so you don't
Parliament...
have a plan?
Well, it's unclear how
Mr.
Parliament...
Robbins,
No, if I can finish the question. So the point is that we could be in a situation with no deal. We could be in a situation with no Brexit. I think there's significant problems with both of those courses. But what I can be clear on is the consequence of the vote not going through next week would be uncertainty for business, uncertainty of jobs. There's businesses that want
even more
to invest.
uncertainty if the government and the department hasn't planned.
Well, we have. I mean, it's a separate issue to come on to the work that we have been doing for No Deal preparation. It's work that Steve Baker did when he was the No Deal minister. It's work that Chris Houston-Harris and colleagues across government have done a huge amount of work. But the clear
so are
view...
you saying, Minister, then that really you don't know, you're deciding after the vote?
No. What I'm saying is that it will be... I mean, Parliament will obviously have views on this as well. But it's the focus of government is delivering the deal. This is the best deal for the country. It is
the best deal for the EU, I hasten to add.
Well, your views are on record, and obviously I have read those. But the point is that this is the only deal. The EU have made that clear, and it is a deal that allows us to deliver the certainty that business needs, but also that for those of us, as I know you did, that campaigned for Brexit, that wanted to see a skills-based immigration, that wanted to see us take control of our fishing, that wanted to ensure that we were out of the CAP, that wanted to ensure that we had an independent...
With respect,
that's what this deal is about.
Mr. Robbins now,
that's what this deal is about.
Thank you very much for answering that, or not answering it in the case. So, Mr. Robbins, you've been on this right from the beginning, for a very long time. So, what do you think is going to happen, or what have you advised the Prime Minister to do if it falls next week, the vote?
I can't really add anything to what the Secretary of State has said, Ms Jenkins. The focus of the whole government from the Prime Minister down is on delivering the deal.
But do you think that's actually good planning of the government if they haven't got a plan beyond the vote?
I think the government is doing...
We have plans, as I've touched, generally we have plans in terms of a no-deal scenario, but I think that would be damaging to jobs, it would be damaging to business. But are there plans for a no-deal scenario in the event that the government does not secure the vote? Yes, there are. And a huge amount of work has gone in behind the scenes in government on those plans. But the focus of government is on securing the vote, because that is in the national interest.
Right. Thank you. Secretary of State, in his resignation letter, David Davis said that the Prime Minister's Brexit policy would put the country in, at best, a weak negotiating position and possibly an inescapable one. Furthermore, it said the policy will make control by Parliament illusionary rather than real. And finally, the Common Rulebook policy hands control of large swathes of our economy to the EU and is certainly not returning control of our laws in any real sense. Was David Davis, the Secretary of State for 2 years, wrong? And if not, what dramatic changes have been made to the deal to put Mr Davis's concerns at ease?
Well, the biggest part of our economy is services. And this deal doesn't put services in anyone's control, quite the opposite. So I'm just taking that as just one example. So no, I don't accept. I mean, I obviously hugely respect the work that David Davis did in the department and also in government, and also incidentally as a parliamentarian. I think he's a parliamentarian of huge standing. But to say that, a precise quote, that this puts our economy in the control of others, well, you know, that was a
resignation letter.
Well, indeed, but as our services in particular, as the former Minister for Financial Services, I know that services are a huge part of our economy. They're also, as someone who wants to take a much more global approach in terms of moving forward as part of our future approach. If I look at areas such as asset management, where the UK has huge opportunities, I look at areas like fintech, insurance. There's massive potential for the UK within financial services. The idea that that is in someone else's control, I'm afraid, is just not correct.
Thank you, Minister. You've stated that about a global approach. I'm sure everybody in this room would like to agree with that, whether you're Brexiteer or Remainer. So, Secretary of State, is it more or less likely that we could achieve a free trade deal with the USA under WTO rules or under the PM's deal? Is it more or less likely?
More likely with the USA under...
So is it more or less likely that we could achieve a free trade deal with the USA under WTO or under the PM's deal?
Well, I think what the PM's deal secures is...
but is it more or less likely? It's a simple question.
More or less, sorry.
Are we more likely to achieve a free trade deal under WTO rules or under the Prime Minister's deal?
Well, I think the PM's deal allows us to secure a deal with the US. I think the point is that...
So you're saying more the PM's deal, we're more likely to reduce?
No, I think the PM's deal is in the better interest of the economy, and I'll explain why. Because Europe is our largest trading relationship. It's important we maintain that. But in terms of the political declaration, it makes clear on page 1 that it will both respect the referendum result and enable us to have an independent trade policy that enables us
so is President Trump wrong, Secretary of State, when he says it would be very difficult to get a deal with the US under the Prime Minister?
Well, I note the comments of the President. Obviously, that's hugely significant because he is President of the United States, but I think that's also been put in context by the comments of the US Ambassador recently. It's also been put in context by the lead negotiator for the trade envoy, who's written to Congress in the US signalling their desire for a trade deal. Liam Fox has done a huge amount of work. But one should also bear in mind the balance in terms of the amount of trade we do with Europe vis-à-vis the US.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions, if that's okay. It's very quick ones, actually, Chair. Thank you. Mr Robbins, just briefly touching on what my colleague Jacob mentioned about the Daily Telegraph. If you have actually warned the Prime Minister, then I think as Brexiteers want to commend you for warning her on the issue of the backstop. But can I just ask, are there any other occasions when the Prime Minister has failed to listen to quite fundamental advice?
Ms Jenkyns, I'd like to think that the Prime Minister listens to the advice she gets from across the system, including from her ministerial colleagues, all the time. And I have to say, I think my experience over the last 2.5 years of working for her and ministerial colleagues on this subject is that they have approached the issues and the options with incredible seriousness. And so the kind of views that Mr Rees-Mogg were putting to me earlier, have been part of a very healthy process of myself and colleagues across government in making sure that ministers take the full suite of options and issues very seriously.
And final question, please, Chair. Thank you, Mr Robbins. Mr Robbins, are you aware of any advice shown to ministers on the legality or feasibility of a second referendum?
I'm not aware of any, no.
Okay.